Oh look, more live-action Disney remakes. What a treat. I sure hope there's 5 more movies of this bullcrap, and God knows we're already getting more live-action movies down the road that have already been announced this year, with stuff like the live-action Mulan, the live-action Cruella de Vil, and hey, on Disney Plus we're gonna get the live-action Lady and the Tramp! Disney, I think we need to have an intervention. Because here's the thing, Disney, from the bottom of my heart, from a man who really loved your movies as a kid, and still to this day, there is something I truly, desperately want to itemize. These remakes need to stop. Not to take a break, not to cease temporarily for a year or two, they just need to stop. They simply only exist to make billions of dollars at the box office, so that way you can continue this corporate trend remaking the exact same movie over and over again, and it's ruining your reputation. Now, I don't hate Disney's way of making these live-action remakes that only serve to expand upon the characters, maybe expand upon the story that the original didn't, despite retelling the exact same story. I hate that an industry and a studio that is known for changing the animated filmmaking landscape has reduced itself into creating pointless exercises in millennial appeasement with no creative tissue in its body. Rehashing the exact same movie without any cinematic respect, only to appease to the mainstream audience and exploit their nostalgia and chortle with adolescent applause. And the latest Disney live-action remake of The Lion King is an example as such. A soulless, manipulative, cynical cash grab that is specifically designed to remind fans how awesome their favorite animated movie of all time was, but striving to do nothing new, inventive, creative, or anything resembling cinematic grace. Now, for what it's worth, I remember enjoying the original Lion King. Slightly overrated? For sure. But that's not to say that it's a bad film by any stretch of the imagination. It just doesn't rank up from one of my personal favorites like Hunchback, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin. But after having watched the newest remake, I think I have a little bit more respect for the original more than I thought I would. Now, after that introduction, as far as plot goes, it's essentially the exact same story that was told 25 years ago. It's the dawn of a new era in the Great Plains of Africa, in which the King and Queen Lions of Pride Rock, Mufasa, who was once again played by James Earl Jones, and Sarabi, give birth to a young cub known as Simba, who is positioned to be next in line to claim the throne as the new Lion King. However, Mufasa's jealous, power-hungry brother Scar, who is this time played by Chiwetel Ejiofor instead of Jeremy Irons, forges a treacherous plan that results into the death of a family member and sending the would-be King Simba into exile. Now it's up to Simba to learn the morals of responsibility, courage, bravery, and heck, even learn the identity of what he's truly meant to be in order to take back the throne that is rightfully his. Now, here's what I definitely have to say in regards to the positives I have with the live-action Lion King. The visual effects in terms of creating the animals and the worlds and the landscape, it's magnificent to a T, as it's pretty much the same technology that Jon Favreau utilized to craft the world of 2016's remake of Jungle Book. The overall design and the scope of the world has its promising elements to make you feel like that you are a part of this world that is created in this film. Even simple, realistic animal actions such as flicking the ear, or chewing sideways like a gazelle, or even the simplest of animalistic traits such as fur, claws, teeth, and even skin and hair, it's nonetheless visually wonderful. But here are some of the problems that kick in. While the animal designs and the scope of the film is terrific, unfortunately, it takes away the emotional impact that was set upon the original. Disney is so distracted upon this live-action realism gimmick that it's losing the impact of such gratifying moments from the original Lion King in 1994. And it's basically becoming a huge disadvantage from all of these live-action remakes that have basically been rehashed by Disney that have failed to execute what has been personified in their animated predecessors. For instance, there is so much you can do with animation, like creating expressive character designs, voices, mannerisms, playing with multiple colors to fit the look of the character in the film itself, along with grandiose environments, all of which can make up for iconic moments that stick in your mind and hold on to your everlasting emotions. In the live-action remake of The Lion King, it fails to do those things. Here's the problem in regards to the live-action remake of The Lion King. Lions can't emote, or cry, or laugh. And neither can all the other animals in the film. They just basically walk around with this stone-cold, dead look on their face. So having the film basically rely on this realism tactic, making these animals basically act like they would in the real world, it would rob any scene of its heartbreaking and even uplifting moments. I wish I can say that this movie has beautiful cinematography, precise editing and pacing, and even whimsical renditions of the original songs. But I can't, because here's my biggest problem of this movie. everything is line for line, shot for shot, song for song, but lacks personality, vibrance, and the gravitas of the original. And boy, isn't anyone getting flashbacks right now. Yes, once again, we entered the exact same scenario in which a live-action adaptation is literally a Gus Van Sant Psycho-style remake, much like Bill Condon's highly overrated Beauty and the Beast, in which every single shot, dialogue, performance is an alternative copy of something that was already perfect as it was prior, but doesn't have a pulse or original bone in this movie's body to drive the story or to justify its existence. And I know that people are going to defend Disney and Jon Favreau's direction by saying that he's relying more on the if it ain't broke it don't fix it approach, and that's enough to justify why this movie's being released in theaters, which I can understand if the end result wasn't so disingenuous and hollow. The direction in this remake is devoid of anything resembling passion or a soul that it's hard to get immersed in the story, the characters, and even the songs. Here's how little this film cares, especially how songs are crafted and how scenes are formulated. Can You Feel the Love Tonight, which is sung decently by Donald Glover and Beyonce, it laughably takes place in the daytime. I mean, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? It's not even past 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the most egregious affront in terms of songs is Be Prepared. Be Prepared being Scar's theme song, which is basically one of the best songs, if not in fact the best song in the entire film. In this movie, it is insultingly short, and it's mostly done by Chiwetel Ejiofor, talk singing and mostly being auto-tuned. And like I said, since it's not an animation and it's trying to be realistic, it loses the weight and the imagination of what that song was truly supposed to be. And remember that scene when Mufasa's looking down upon Simba and his theme is kicking in? That's pretty gorgeous, right? Now how about that? But let's make it less interesting and breathtaking. Some performances are good, others are phoning it in entirely. As far as good performances are, Bill Eichner and Seth Rogen do lighten the film as Timon and Pumbaa. Their comedy relief, rather than rehashing the jokes of the original, provide newer bits of comedy throughout the film, which is kinda neat. And they also bring just somewhat of an ounce of life to the movie. Chiwetel Ejiofor as Scar at moments delivers a very effective and decent performance as Scar, interjecting a sense of menace and danger when he's on screen. But as far as singing is concerned, it's very hard to buy. But unfortunately, some performances such as Donald Glover, Beyonce, and even James Earl Jones, who's the original Mufasa, deliver underwhelming and phoned-in performances. This is what baffled me the most. There are some scenes in this movie, since this film is 2 hours long, that solely exist just to pad out the runtime of the film. Like, the film does nothing with its expansion of the runtime to further character development or even thematic elements of any kind. And I know what you're thinking, Luke Nukem, what are they going to do to pad out the runtime to expand this 2-hour-long escapade? Well, of course they include some scenes and explain some scenes that were not presented in the original, like how Nala was able to find Simba in time without being noticed by Scar and his hyena troops, which I thought was a pretty okay decision for the film's part. But you want to truly know what made this movie even longer? Here's this. They furthered the introduction of that mice rolling around that Scar picks up and go like, "Life's not fair, isn't it, my little friend?" They stretched out the introduction for so long until we finally get to that speech. We get tiring establishing shots, extra scenes that didn't even need to be in the movie to begin with, and the biggest example, I could not believe this was in the movie. Do you know that scene where Simba slumps down on the piece of grass and foliage, and then you see like debris flying into the air as it gets all the way to Rafiki, where it finally comes to the realization that Simba was alive this whole time? Well, instead it goes like this. Simba sits down, debris is flying all over the place with like a piece of his mane popping out. It flies all over the place. The little piece of Simba's mane is taken up by a little bird. It flies over to a big tree in its nest, and then the hair falls down from the nest and is eaten by a giraffe. And then you see a dung beetle rolling along the ball of poop as it also contains Simba's hair. I wish I was kidding. And then the dung beetle loses grip of the poop, it breaks in half, the hair starts flying, it's then picked up by a fire ant, and then is taken all the way to Rafiki's tree. That is a scene that happens that expands upon the film's runtime. And what's worse is that because of certain expansions, it also removes scenes that were prominent in the original. Do you remember that scene where Rafiki basically bonks Simba on the head and he goes, "Ow, what was that for?" And he goes, "It doesn't matter, it's in the past." It was one of the most prominent moments of the movie because it taught kids morals about letting go of the past. That scene is taken out of the film. It's taken out in exchange for a dung beetle rolling a piece of poop that contains Simba's hair. It's not an extended scene. It's a metaphor for what Disney is doing to their original properties by remaking worse versions of themselves. The Lion King 2019 is a righteous cash grab. It's the exact same movie but with a soulless, passionless fresh coat of paint with no sense of heart or effort to its core. Needless remakes like this are a prime example of a studio that once stood for pioneering the concept of feature-length animated films, as much as creating timeless stories, memorable characters, beautiful songs, and transcendent animation, is heading in a path towards half-hearted non-effort that will go out of their way to deliver the exact same movie twice, only to exploit nostalgia to the viewer without giving them something memorable, new, or powerful. In decades' time, this remake will be forgotten like all the other remakes and will be left in the bargain bin at Walmart, because when all is said and done, everyone will be watching the originals instead, and they would have forgotten everything about these remakes in the process. I know that Disney still has it in them to create timeless work. Heck, I'm praying to the heavens above that Frozen 2 is the equivalent to like How to Train Your Dragon 2 or Toy Story 3. But this is not Disney's way. At all. And they definitely need to, alongside audience members, know that it's time to move on from this trend and focus on what made their brand original and touch the hearts of billions. While it does have visually stunning animation and some decent performances from Bill Eichner and Seth Rogen, and at some points Chiwetel Ejiofor, nothing about this movie's songs, characters, emotional stakes, drama, score, editing, cinematography are implemented as well as it once was back in 1994. Most of the actors in this movie deliver underwhelming performances. The new renditions of songs have no imaginative punch, and I can't even express it enough. It's the same freaking film with no heart, no soul, or anything resembling an identity of its own. The live-action remake of The Lion King gets a 1.5 out of 5. Alright guys, so that is my review of the live-action remake of The Lion King. Comment below, let me know what you thought about the movie. Find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and also if you would like to see more reviews like this, be sure to subscribe for more. My name is Luke Nukem, and Disney, come up with your own original ideas rather than rehashing something that was already perfect to begin with. You're better than this.